Welcome back, everyone, to the Total Innovation Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Simon Hill. Today, we have a bonus episode that will go out to close out the humanitarian crowdsolving series that I started earlier in this season with a very special guest, Marco Miglioli. I met Marco recently at a Wazoku event in Milan, and like so many of the brilliant minds in our innocentive crowd, I was immediately struck by his passion, precision, and perspective. Marco is an award-winning lighting architect whose work spans cathedrals, museums, theatres, and as you will hear on today's episode, now refugee camps. He was the winning solver in the International Rescue Committee's Phosphorescence Technology for Lighting Challenge. It's a bit of a mouthful. A challenge we heard so movingly about in our conversation with Carla Lopez from the IRC in an earlier episode of this season of the podcast. I recommend everyone to go back and listen to that if you haven't done already. In this episode, which is all about light, not just the technical or aesthetic aspects of light, but light as dignity, light as safety, and light as human innovation. In this fascinating topic, we're going to get into it with Marco, who knows more about light than probably many people out there. And so with that, Marco, to shed some light on light, welcome to the podcast. It's great to meet you.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank
Good.
You for inviting me.
Good. Very welcome, very welcome. And everyone listening, English is not Marco's first language, but he's great at it. And we will try and make sure that everything is as clear and clear as understandable as we possibly can. And thank you, Marco, for giving me your time. So let's get into it, Marco. I said we met in Italy. I was struck, by your passion and your enthusiasm for the work that you do. And you describe yourself as a lighting architect, a phrase that maybe it's your Italian as well. It feels quite poetic. So maybe just talk a little bit about what that means to you. What is a lighting architect?
Yeah, actually, well, thank you. Well, lighting architect is as a neologism I use to describe my work because in Italian, we don't really have a word or proper translation for lighting designer. So we use different terms. And so I started using this term, this phrase, lighting architect, because it's this expression, it summarizes my approach to light. Now, I studied architecture. I'm an architect, although I've been working almost exclusively on lighting design and especially on architectural lighting for about 15 years now. And so in a way, this term seems to me to, let's say, to sum up my path. The architecture is a built space we inhabit, we live in, and we can see it thanks to the light, to the way we use the light, to the way we lit the architecture. So this is the definition, this new terms, I would say, this lighting architect, which is actually another translation from the term I use in Italian.
What is the term you use in Italian?
It's architetto delle luci, which means architect of light.
Okay, nice.
And this term for me speaks of a light that it's integral part of architecture. It's architecture in itself, but also suggests a fusion, a mixture between my two profession, which is the architect and lighting designer, mostly.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I love about the podcast and the job that I get to do in working across innovation is you realize not just the breadth, but also the depth of the complex system that we live in, right? And the fact that light is so fundamental to so many aspects of what we do, and yet I hadn't given it anywhere near as much thought, clearly, as you have done. But even just in preparation for this podcast, it forced me to think a little bit more around light. I moved last year to Sweden, and light is a little bit more sparse there in parts of the year, and a little bit more prominent there in parts of the year than even the UK. And so you think about light in different ways. In looking at your background, you studied under Peter Zumthor and Mario Botta who I think are two giants of architecture, right? How did those early experiences shape your view of light and space and bring you to the expertise and the career that you've built around light?
Well, actually, we're having professors from different parts of the world it's helped me to see light, to see architecture in a different way. And as you mentioned now, light in Sweden or light in Greece or light in South Africa, it's not the same. We have different sky with different luminosity, with a different. So I think in my university, having such different, so many different architecture, helped me to see things in architecture in a different way. Studying architecture and having professors like Peter Zumthor or Mario Botta or the chance to exchange idea with people like Kenneth Fremto or Frank Gehry, just name someone, helped me to, let's say, to develop a sense of a space and taught me to how to translate emotion into concrete, into tangible places. Yeah? And because I think that just as a built space, architecture can transmit emotion. Light too, when it interacts, when it is combined with architecture, as to evoke sensation, as to transmit feelings. So let's play let's plays with man and creates emotional situations. And then I have to say that my university reminds me a kind of a little of the Bauhaus school, the old Bauhaus school, because we had much more, we have many more courses, many more subjects than typical the current technical university. So we had, for example, exams in painting or still life or like set design and contemporary art, photography. So and the model making laboratory were the really heart of the school. So there's all of these, all this experience with those professor and the way that the university was set led me to with the idea that the architecture is not still, but it's kind of living being. It's something that transforms and light in the same way, in my opinion, should be able to change, to move over the time, and so especially through the interplay between light and shadow. So that that's like, and I still remember actually when one of the recurring exam with Zumthor, which was called literary atmosphere, and we used to do it a lot of time, and which was about giving transform like sensation into a form, and so like studying architecture and even art or in that university, rather than taking a course or master in lighting design, just a course in lighting design, really shaped my point of view, my view, my way I work, and it taught me to see lighting not just a simple tool to illuminate things, to show things, but as a means to communicate, to convey, to transmit emotions.
What? Yeah, I think I'm always slightly, I think maybe jealous is a good word, but envious maybe is another one, of people that really built this kind of deep specialism from the practical, theoretical learning of university into a career. Some people have these quite neatly mapped out pathways, and I think that this broader sense of it, as you said, you could have gone and studied just lighting, but lighting is part of a system. It's part of a creative process, part of an emotive process, and part of an innovation process, as we'll get onto later. I'm going to pull back a little bit on that statement you said earlier as well, which is about deciding what to bring into light and what to leave in shadow. And maybe you can give us some examples of how that's played out in your studio work and your project work, and why you think that's so important.
Yeah, sure. Well, because I think every time I do a project, I have to decide what to do and what to show. So whenever I approach a project, I always try to create hierarchy, maybe a level within a space to guide the eye, to draw attention to certain elements, and so choosing what within a building or a public space plays the most important role in the history I want to tell. And so I had to do and I had to do this through the relationship, to the connection between light and shadow. So the relationship, this relationship is what defines the narrative part of architecture. And so a clear example could be, uh, for example, the religious buildings. So now I'm thinking of the Milan Cathedral or a basilica in central Italy, whose lighting I worked on. And in those spaces, light accent or shadow plays help guide the visitor through the different moments of religious services. So, and it, the light changes over time and show something that it's important in that moment of the religion. And then, well, I speak of speaking about light shadow as a visual language in itself, just mainly shadow. Another project came to mind, which is a major exhibition on romanticism I lead some years ago, and this exhibition was an exhibition where I can say light, art, and music came together to create a sensory experience. Because romanticism places, sets the individual, the man, the human at the center. So with all that contradiction, existential apprehension, or and the longing for freedom. So, and in the romantic era, the romantic character is a tormented figure. Now, it's often a young man who rejects societal rules and opposes them, and often meets tragic ends than like the old romantic figures. And one of the sculpture of in the exhibition, which has explained well this the way I work, it was called the Bold Regretto, which is a statue about an orphan boy who fought in defense of the Roman Republic, and was killed by a bomb exploded in his hands. So I want to, and I like to focus on the lighting of the statue because, as I said, it reflects both my interpretation of the exhibition, but my way I work. So the way I work, because and the statue was placed in a dark room and was lit by strong light, as if the explosion of a bomb were breaking, let's say, the darkness, and in the same way, casting it's a deep or distorted, unsettling shadow across the back wall. And so now, what would the visitor have seen if the statue had been lit, had been illuminated with evenly, with diffuse lights? But they would have seen a boy with a small dog at his feet and carved with smooth, luminous marble, and so kind of theoretical and unblemished little hero, as classical arts often show us, as romanticism, the idea we have about romanticism. And
Yep.
but I instead wanted to present something dramatically more real, and that was possible just through the use of shadows. The exhibition, in fact, unfolded through corridors and rooms that alternated between light and darkness. It wasn't just about seeing artworks, but it was about entering. It was about getting into the spirit and of that period. And the exhibition said us merge these two souls of romanticism. The one which we are used about mythological heroes, and the one of the monster, the creature that emerged from them, and they were shadow, like if they were the shadow of I'd say Frankenstein or Dracula, were actually what fictional characters, but born not by chance, but from the imagination of writer of that period. And so the cat shadows becomes in this way works themselves. These total terrifying images of the darkest soul which is concealed within the statue. So that's why I wanted to just to leave something in the darkness, to let people imagine, or to let people dream about something, also not to show everything.
I feel like you and I need to go spend some time together in some places of worship and some museums, and you can help me see the world in a totally different way than perhaps I have been seeing it. But I do think it raises so many questions, right? And I was thinking as you were talking there about the different aspects of this from an innovation angle, which we, as I said, we'll get onto this, like kind of why we're talking about lighting in an innovation podcast in a little while. But there really are huge amounts of parallels, right? Like the innovation relies heavily on storytelling. It relies on, what is said and what isn't said can be super impactful. What we show and what we don't show is analogous to that in terms of light and dark and shadow, and what you leave to the imagination versus and how you present these things really does lead to the way that people receive it. But those people also have to be attuned to that, right? I think if I spent time in your company, in one of your museums, you might get deeply frustrated with me because my mind works in a different way. And you're like, but can't you see the beauty in this thing, Simon? And there's an element of storytelling that needs to come out in some of these things. Your research and your work has, it touches, as you've just spoken to, right, on perception, on aging, on visual well-being, on a number of different quite emotive and I guess quite deeply spiritual things, and maybe we'll call them human-centered, right? So why does the human-centered aspect of your work so important to you?
Well, it's important because people are always at the center of the project, and then the people are completely different. As many people can see things in a different way. So if we go to the museum together, maybe you can teach me something that I don't see.
Maybe.
Everyone has different perspectives. And so I think that just architecture is a bit around the human being and these different things, this different way that the humans see reality. The light in the same way that the light that reveals the show the architecture should also be thought for people, and because lighting with its color, its intensity, it's deeply connected to how we perceive the space, and that's why pushed me to let's say to explore, to research solutions that allow everyone to better perceive the reality, the space around them. Actually, I started my researches, my study about well-being or aging, and how visual perception changes over time. When I was studying lighting, and I realized that most of the lighting standard, most of the lighting rules and researches are based on groups of people between 20 and 30. But vision and the way the eye respond to light changes significantly with the time, with the aging. So obviously, the way a 1-year-old child or it sees things, it's completely different from how a 20 years old or elderly people see things. So um, that's why um, my work mm, it's about lighting. Uh, it's not just it's just lighting, just studying lighting, but I have to look many other subjects like physiology or biology. So, and that's why I believe we need a more inclusive and global approach to design. And the same, well, it's not just for lighting, but the same goes for architecture itself. So as architects or as people in general, we should think more about architectural barriers and how to overcome them, rather than focusing on only on abstract forms and abstract architecture. And all these solutions obviously should also be integrated put inside in a beautiful architecture. So yes, I think we should um, build beautiful spaces because I think beauty and art is naturally um, naturally contribute to people's well-being, and because they are human needs, they are human requirements, and so we shouldn't be building, as we say, a cathedral in the desert, or just building to just to do it, that focus only on aesthetic, but we need to put people's well-being at the center. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that includes also the well-being of other animals or of other living beings, like animals that, for example, who are often affected by light pollution, or and also plants or the natural environment in general. But unfortunately, there are still few research on these.
Yeah, and that moves us nicely actually into the, and I think we've sort of touched on it as we've gone, that light isn't just about light, it's also about the absence of light, right? And so one of the things that I've seen you advocate for is for darker skies, and as you've just mentioned, yep, environmental balance. And so how do you see your role as a designer and a light advocate in the global conversation around sustainability and well-being?
Well, the role I enrolled the Dark Sky Association because, well, actually, the environment is really fundamental, especially nowadays. The way we treat the environment, the nature, and I think the role of a designer, lighting designer, or designer in general, in this sense, is absolutely crucial because it prevents poor lighting or poor architecture. And so an environmental context and sustainability concern, among all, especially the outdoor light and the outdoor lighting for me. And as I was saying before, like a designer has the uh, responsibility, let's say, to use the expertise, to use the right technique to direct the light, to focus the light only where it's truly needed, and to avoid wasting it, because waste light it can be harmful to the environment. It can disturb animals, affect plants, and but also means wasting of energy. And and it's not just about money either, energy, but also about consuming valuable resources. So once again, we need to think on a more global scale. So what we design, especially about human being, uh, mm, we we tend to isolate the human. We just build or design thinking only about human, but human are a part of a wider ecosystem. An ecosystem that we have to respect, we have to care of and to care about, and with which we have to coexist. So and at least about that sky that you asked me before, I say yes, it's wonderful to be illuminated, but it's also beautiful not to be over illuminated, because it's to the point where we can see the sky. We can't see the sky anymore in our city. So, and I think it's beautiful for a person to during the night going in the sea to see the water light up with bioluminescence, or to look up to fill the gaze up to the stars, and to fantasize, to dream about the night and the stars. So it's that's
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no.
Go on. No, I was just going to say thank you, and I was going to sort of, because I'm going to move us slightly now into the topic of innovation, more specifically, that led you and I to agreeing to do this episode. But I'm hoping everybody listening can understand why, even though the next part of the podcast is digging into the specific innovation story, why I actually was really passionate about telling this first part and making it most of the podcast, because it's an area that, as you've said, it's multidisciplinary, right? Your background is multidisciplinary, but as with all of these fascinating areas of highly skilled expertise, lighting isn't just about lighting, right? And it isn't just about light either. And it is about innovation, and it is about experience, and it is about, where value can be created, perceived, received in all its myriad forms as well. And so that's the background piece, right? And that's who Marco is. And I'm sure people get a sense of your passion, and also, the beauty of you as a person around all of this as well, right? It comes across an abundance. You and I met as a consequence of an innovation challenge, right? And this is where, in this instance, it was about lighting as a mechanism for safety, for protection, right? So we ran this challenge that I mentioned in the introduction for the IRC, the International Rescue Committee. Can you just describe a little bit about the challenge and how you came to be participating in this as well?
Sure. But as you said, I mean, lighting is not just light, but it's something more. It can be so. Even in this challenge, lighting is not just lighting, but it's to provide something more to people who live in the refugees camp. So, and this challenge, which Carla Lopez also mentioned in one of the recent podcast episodes, and was to design a lamp that could light the latrines in refugee camps. And these latrines, for hygiene reasons, are usually located far from tents, from shelters. So the task was to come up with an innovative, autonomous lighting solution, something that didn't rely on electricity. It had no batteries, no solar panel, and cost under $5. Could provide light for at least 12 hours, and enough light to read a sheet of paper. And the recharging time had to be no more than 8 hours, and the lamp should last for 5 years. So, and in addition, it had to withstand harsh weather. It had to be easy to install and safe from theft, damage. So at the beginning, it seems to me like an almost impossible challenge. Founding as I was used to do before. It was something that I was just to build everything, and with almost without any restrictions. So,
yeah, it's the literal moon on a stick challenge. That's what they were looking for in this case. Exactly. They wanted the moon on a stick with a light, exactly, as a lighting source.
That's what. Do it. Try it. But it was a good exercise, I think, to face this, to do this challenge with so strict rules, and because to face this challenge, to solve this challenge, so I changed my approach to the design, because I tried to, let's say, to put myself in the shoes of people who have to manage, who have to live in this extreme situation. And in refugee camps, electricity is often completely absent. Yes. And so going to the latrines, into the bathroom during the night, especially for women and children, means exposing to serious risks, and which can be attacks from other people, or even encounter with dangerous animals, dangerous wildlife, even in the darkness, like snakes or so. So lighting those latrines became a retail and a real urgency, urgency. And so what's uh, pushed me to say yes, I want to try it. I want to find a solution to this problem. Was the ethical and social dimension of the challenge. So the chance not to work on the chance to work um, on a new, sustainable, affordable lighting that mm, could be used by people and could have a real use and not just theoretical. So the idea of let's say bringing light exactly where it's most needed, and that was inspiring me. And since developing a solution for this challenge requires a lot of time, a lot of energy. I also saw this challenge, these moments, as a personal moment of research and growth. Right? That's why that is a reason why now I keep developing this project and improving the prototype. Even now that now the challenge is finished, I'm still working on and to find if I can improve this solution and bring more light or more and to more time, and to keep lighting for more time. And uh, so I like to explore and continue working on this topic, and and especially on phosphorescent light, because it's I, I see that it's still a unexplored field, and it's a light source that doesn't need electricity, and it's ecological and recyclable. And so if we think about the current situation, which is uh, which is becoming uh, unsustainable. Let's say, right now fossil fuels are being questioned, so it's so crucial, I think, to study new alternatives that respond to the changing climate. So, and in this way, I think that the challenge and innovation are useful for this kind of thing, because we can try to find a solution and to see things in a different way. So, and I think that global challenges are quite useful even for to find new solution to improve the life. Or
Yeah,
where,
it's amazing, and that I think that mix of real impact, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, plus the environmental piece, plus the fact that it's really ignited a spark in you in a slightly different area of lighting, they're all part of that mix of why you get involved in these kind of things, right? Because
yeah,
as to remind people listening, this is a voluntary act by you. You weren't guaranteed of any impact, of any financial reward. You did work on
yeah,
your own time on something that you thought would be interesting. And maybe just on that, you've worked on projects for royal palaces, for museums, for these famous art galleries and cathedrals we've spoken about. What was it about applying your craft and your knowledge into humanitarian contexts, especially ones involving such vulnerability and need, that like what did you learn from this? Where did it take you?
yeah. So well, with the different different topics and palaces over and humanitarian fields, and the funds are different, the resources are different, and But I mean, the connected to what I was saying before, one of the I choose to try the challenge, this challenge. As you said, even before for the ethical, things, not just before, not the price or whatever, because it was not sure. So, and then to the to the challenge and the research in itself. And I would say that in a certain way, the research is what connects the way I approach a museum or palaces, royal palaces, and the humanitarian field, humanitarian context. Because working on important artworks, which are pieces that require spatial lighting, spatial solution, and careful study to avoid damage or long-term degradation caused by light, has definitely changed my way I think, my way I work, because it made me realize that the light um, doesn't just illuminate, doesn't just create a space, but it can also destroy. Right? And in a similar way, when I when working in humanitarian context, light light must be um, used with the same care. Right? Um, just as we use specific lighting to preserve artworks, to keep artworks so they can uh, be appreciated by future generation. Uh, the same respect should be, let's say, extended even more so to the people, and especially uh, to the people who lives in difficult humanitarian conditions and who deserve a minimum, at least a minimum level of well-being. So if artwork needs protection and attention and care, then people need even more. And uh, in addition, I think light should protect beauty and make it make it visible, make this beauty visible. So even in refugee camps, whether it's an architectural project or medical facilities or lighting system like the one the lighting lamp, like the one in the challenge, we should try to make those spaces more beautiful, the refugee camp more beautiful, because I think that welcoming, pleasant space uh, can help fight uh, um, feelings of anger, resignation, or sadness. So, of course, it's not the only thing that matters, but creating a safer and more comfortable environments. Um, then definitely makes a difference. Yeah? And then again, I think during a challenge on humanitarian fields um, uh, means also to use study and research in the same way I study for art, because I study a lot and deep art to because I cannot make any mistake, because I choose maybe a wrong light, it can destroy or fade the color of painting. And about humanitarian sector, humanitarian fields, if where resources are most of the time few and and are not frequent, so just wasting resources and with an idea that maybe cannot be built or cannot be useful, cannot work, it means wasting resources that cannot be otherwise implemented for other things. So in this way, I personal feeling like was like I felt like a pressure in doing this challenge, because I knew that I couldn't fail. And there's
So many people talk about that deep level of connection and this real feeling of accountability and responsibility for the projects that you undertake on a completely voluntary basis, right? And I think it's just incredible. Well, Marco, there's so many more places we could go with this, but I'm conscious of time, and so I'm going to start to wrap us up a little bit. I want to thank you. For fear of a bad pun, this has been a truly illuminating episode, and I think it's been there's so much more depth to the topic of light, as I've said multiple times through this, than I'd ever thought about. I want to congratulate you personally on being successful in this challenge. I think it's it could have been one that you totally overlooked. I had no idea we had such a deep level of knowledge around specific lighting in there. But it really wasn't just your lighting background. It was the holistic background you come from that brought you the ability to think about this, to apply your research mindset to it. And as Carla spoke about in her episode, this will go far beyond just the topic of that we were talking about in terms of the latrines, because this is a highly scalable solution, right? We're now working on trying to bring this to market, and I think it'll impact hundreds of millions of lives over time. And so thank you and congratulations on that. I don't know if there's any final thoughts you'd like to have, and then I'm going to wrap us up.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe like a message I would like to share, and which is connected to the challenge of the phosphorescence lighting, and which is something that I learned by working on humanitarian challenges, is that often it takes very little to solve a problem, and it takes just a small light to change the place. So, and we don't need like complex technologies or high technology solution, high tech solution, which mainly cost many ends. But since the light for this challenge was created using phosphorescent material, I think there's also a second message I want to share, that is we need to explore, we need to experiment new form of sustainable low-cost lighting that can be applied in real life and not just in theory, especially in a moment like this when humanitarian needs are constantly growing and resources obviously are becoming more and more limited. So those are these two.
There's a big call out to all the organizations out there that might be interested in this to say, look, there's a willing mind here. And for people that are interested in Marco's work, we'll share some links to his profile and other things in the show notes afterwards. Marco, thank you very much for today's episode. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Marco's work reminds us that innovation doesn't always have to come from high-tech or high-budget solutions. It can come from attention, intention, and a willingness to see things differently. As we wrap up this three-part arc on humanitarian crowdsolving, with huge thanks to Harry Sangui, Carla Lopez, and now, of course, today's guest, Marco, I'm reminded once again of the immense power of the global community to innovate for good. And whilst this wraps up the humanitarian spotlight, we've got one more episode before a well-earned summer break for me and the podcast. So join me next time for a conversation with Ludwig Bergstrom, the founder of Nordic Tech Week. He's a brilliant voice at the intersection of innovation, sustainability, and regional dynamism. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and keep innovating.